Blueprint for Closes. Welcome back, Dominic Ciccarelli with Think Design Architecture. Here with Rob Nixon, the Nixon team pre-real, and today we're with Jude Romano, the insurance goat. Welcome.
Yeah.
This guy's got nice blue eyes. He's making me nervous.
Yeah.
I wore this jacket on purpose.
Today's topic's all about insurance. So Jude, before we get started, give us a little bit of background about yourself. We'll get into your social media presence a little bit later in the show, but how'd you get into insurance? What's your background and tell us
how'd
what
you become the
specialize in.
insurance goat?
Wow, that's a good question. So, grew up in Staten Island. I think both of you from there, born and raised in
Brooklyn,
Staten Island. So, grew up in Staten Island. Worked in finance pretty much all of my life before insurance. Finished at JP Morgan in 2015, and then wanted to start a practice for myself with a business that you could potentially continuously receive compensation, not like a one and close deal, because at JP Morgan, you get a client, you do the work once and then that's it. But and I just wanted to be in something lucrative where I knew it was something I could help everyone out with. So that's how I got into insurance. So I started my practice in 2017. So here we are 6 years in. So in the insurance world, you measure people by how long they're in the business. That's anyone I meet with insurance, the only question I don't need to ask them how big their book is, just how long you're in the business. And the longer they're in the business, typically the better that they're doing, right? Just from book size. And so here I am. Now I'm in Red Bank, New Jersey. What'd you ask? How did I become
the insurance goat? Especially so branded. I love it. Love
Thank
the
you.
gear.
Yeah, man. So, typically I wouldn't show up, hat, t-shirt, and as you guys probably seen, a lot of my interviews have been essentially the same way I'm dressed now, just different colors and whatnot. And so my team says, this is you. This is what people know you as now. You can't change that up. And I went to a really nice restaurant not too long ago, Jasper Stone, which we just released the footage today. And I was hesitant on going to the restaurant dressed like this.
Super casual.
Yeah, and it was just like, this is you. This is how people know you now. You can't change that.
That's how you brand yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, from a comfort level, it's fine. But to answer your question, I wanted to brand myself a little different than everyone else, right? Because everyone in the insurance space, the commonality is they take their last name and they'll call it Romano Insurance Agency, right? Smith Insurance Agency, whatever it might be. And so I wanted to be a little bit more catchy and not just the norm of everyone else. And a few peers of mine in the space always would call me the GOAT because I always figured everything out when it came to a hard risk. So then as I was, strategizing on a name, a few of my peers were like, well, we always call you the GOAT. So why aren't we calling you the insurance GOAT? So to be frank, I didn't really come up with the name myself. I just ran with it.
Great name that stuck.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah.
So tell us about the types of insurance you do, the types of clients you specialize in. What's your forte?
Yeah, I mean, so essentially a lot of people always say, like, what kind of insurance you do? And, it's a pretty broad statement, but the answer is I do all insurance, home, auto, business, life. And we're licensed in, I believe it's 14 states. But I would say my specialty is commercial and life, especially commercial. I like to work with like those hard to place contractors. The average insurance agent, they run from those risks, and I kind of run towards them. So I like the more challenging items, right? And it's just a good market to play in because there's very few people who play in that market.
Yeah. We, in my business, just insurance is such a key element to the whole thing, whether it's on the business side or on the real estate side, especially in these times. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but these premium increases we're getting, at a minimum of 30%, sometimes 50% higher, is just, out of control. And how do you keep up with, all this inflation that's happening in the world today? On the real estate side, we have homeowners insurance, and then we have these commercial policies for commercial buildings and things like that. Tell us, how big of your book is this type of business? And what's different between residential homeowners insurance and maybe a commercial policy? And then we could talk about why you think these increases are happening so dramatically.
Yeah, sure. I mean, residential insurance is pretty straightforward. You got your traditional home, your auto. So if you live in your house, it's cookie cutter insurance. I mean, it's not complex, right? It's where's the house, what's the value, how big it is, right? And one of the biggest factors is how close is it to the water.
Okay.
Water is something that insurance companies don't like at all right now.
Post Sandy, it's just
not even post Sandy. Look, people don't realize what's going on in Florida. They think, well, I don't live in Florida, but these companies that are insuring you in New York and New Jersey have a big presence in Florida. So if they take a loss in Florida, how is that not effective for New York and New Jersey, right?
Right.
So, I mean, let's be honest. Like a company such as State Farm, everyone knows State Farm, tremendous company. I mean, they reported the largest loss in history this year, and with that loss reported, a lot of changes. You know, used to be able to go to the auto dealership, buy a car, call up the insurance company, and get insurance right then and there. And now they've taken a step back to say, well, we have a 3-day underwriting period now, where we're not going to give you insurance on the spot. So, you know, the industry is changing tremendously. As far as the commercial risk, you know, when we say the word commercial is so broad, right? Commercial means restaurant, contractor, building that is 5 units or more, building that is occupied by a retail storefront business with residential units above. Commercial's a hair salon, commercial's any restaurant, commercial's a bar. So, you know, it's a very broad statement to say commercial, but residential or commercial, there's a magnifying glass right now over every risk, and insurance companies are all about protecting their bottom line, their assets, and so they're really closing the faucets on opening up to new risks. I think everyone's kind of uncertain where the market's going, so they're trying to just hold on to what they have and see what happens.
Is there a different formula for when they calculate the premium on a residential homeowners policy and maybe a commercial building?
Oh yeah, it's completely different. Yeah. I mean, on a commercial building, they're looking at, you know, how many units are occupied versus how many are vacant, and that's essentially on. If it's a commercial building with just rental units, it's essentially just looking at how many units are occupied. Are they long-term rentals, 12-month rentals? On a residential property, I mean, it's very simple. It's, does the client live there or do they rent it out to others? You know,
I've had some instances where they wanted to know who the tenants were. So, for example, let's just say it was a commercial store with 3 apartments above.
Sure.
They wanted to know who the tenant was, type of tenant, the use. They wanted to make sure that tenant had proper insurance.
For the retail.
For the retail.
Oh, yeah, tremendous. If it's a mixed-use property, one of the biggest underwriting factors are they don't really care about the units above because it's black and white. Right. They care about what kind of business is occupying that retail. Yeah. Is it a restaurant? Is there a potential hazard for a fire? Right? Are they up to code with their stove, and do they have extinguishers and smoke alarms, etc.? If it's a bar or a nightclub, a lot of people will kind of step away from that because there's potential risk of a fight outside, someone getting injured. Yeah. So these are the things that the insurance companies look into for commercial.
What I've been noticing too is that they're even critical about the sidewalks. So I just had 2 properties that came up for renewal. And they actually came by and did a drive-by, and they're like, no, you need to replace these flags, the sidewalk flags in the street before they'll actually renew the policy. They wanted to see photos of the work completed.
Yeah, sure. And, and interesting you brought that up because I just closed a client for a property in Brooklyn, multi-unit, and inspection report revealed they wanted the sidewalk, the apron, everything fixed. And so the client, he's a little fluent. He has multiple properties, so he understood. But some people say, well, Jude, it's not my property. It's the city's property. But at the end of the day, if I fall on your property on the sidewalk, you can argue and say that's the city's property. But the attorneys are suing you first.
Yeah, not
right?
maintaining it.
And and whether that gets passed off to the city or not, it's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. The insurance company just doesn't want no part in it. So yes, to your point, they'll ask for you to repair sidewalk, send proof of photos, and sometimes now they're even asking licensed contractor paid in full receipt. Yeah. Right? Aside from the photos. Yeah. So, but you guys are a little ahead of the curve when understanding this. The average client, they have a lot of trouble understanding this.
I think there's a lot of fine print with a lot of these things, right? So I have a rental building in Jersey that I rented recently. I was having trouble renting it. Just took a long time, market, whatever. And I actually had called you about this. So I got a tenant with a Rottweiler, And tenant, expressed interest, and they're like, "Are you okay with the dog?" And I was like, really on the fence. I really wasn't sure if I wanted pets to begin with, let alone a Rottweiler. So I met the dog, and I forgot if it was you,
I
or
spoke
somebody
about
else
it,
I spoke to, and they were like, "Hey, check your insurance policy. Just what do you call it?" And sure enough, I found fine print in there that I couldn't have any aggressive breeds.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
thank God I found a good tenant afterwards, and I didn't wind up going for it. And but I didn't know. I mean, so. I think there's probably a lot of fine print in general in these policies that people, don't
90% of 90% of the policies won't cover a breed of that nature, unfortunately. It's just a fact.
Yeah. I had a tenant in a 5-family building, had a pit bull, super aggressive. She would never walk the dog on the leash, just wandering around. And I forced her to get a policy, a separate policy just for the dog in case the dog bit someone.
Right.
And, you have to do it.
Yeah, you could do
that.
Yeah, we had an issue where, and this was years ago, where a tenant had a dog, bit another tenant, and they sued me. Yeah. It's unbelievable the intricacy of these insurance policies, where you can't just get a policy and go to bed at night. I mean, you have to worry about all these exclusions, and I feel like the exclusions are just stacking up on these policies where you're almost covered for nothing unless you really look for it. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess probably just because I do it every day. A dog is, it's a big no-no, right? Unless you have like a little dog and it's not a hazard. But big breed dogs, the insurance, no one wants the liability.
Yeah.
If I have a German Shepherd, 150 pounds, and it bites someone, like, you're suing my home insurance.
Yeah.
And if you have $1 million in liability, that's a potential claim paid out.
Yeah.
So the idea is, if you think about it from the insurance company's perspective, it makes complete sense. They don't want to pay out a claim.
Yeah.
Unrelated
to insurance, but a funny story. So I live on the Upper West Side, and I rent, and the rent was a certain amount, and then there's all these extras. Do you want a parking garage for your car? That's a fee. Do you want a storage room in the basement? That's a fee. They're like, oh, you have a dog? No problem. $500 non-refundable deposit and $50 a month more on your lease just to have the dog, because they understand the dog isn't maybe cause some damage. Not so much maybe biting someone, but having pets these days,
I agree with
are
it
expensive.
Completely. I agree with it completely.
Yeah.
For landlords to do that.
The dogs can just destroy the place.
They can. And
yeah.
I mean,
Cats.
I had a friend that lived in one of these incredible buildings on the water in Brooklyn. It was in a 2 bedrooms. Rent was like $10,000 a month. Beautiful floor to ceiling windows, which looked beautiful, right? But it was so not practical. And one thing it had was all the receptacles were in the floor, and he got a Doberman, and he ruined every.
He had receptacles in the floor.
He was using extension cords because he only had one outlet that worked in his entire apartment.
Right? Was it because the dog was peeing?
The dog was peeing in the outlets.
Oh. Imagine the dog dies, gets in a shock because of the outlet.
They came for him for a security deposit, and we're like, you could have given us 4 months, and I think we still couldn't. I mean, they had to replace all the floors. I mean, he destroyed it.
Oh my God.
Well, guys, I have good news for you. One thing that's not excluded from these policies is goats.
There you go.
Wow.
So you could get a goat, no exclusion.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's hysterical.
How about construction stuff in the city? What changes are you seeing there? I mean, because you are hearing a lot of. I mean, or have you seen a trend changing in the last 5 years, whatever it is? Because I mean, you've been hearing. I've been hearing more stories of accidents on sites and everything.
You said last 5 years. Let's firm it up a little bit. The construction industry, it's changing every 3 months right now.
Why is that?
Because of what you just said. Because of losses, claims. So in New York City, in comparison to, let's call it, New Jersey, the thing that New York has that I would say every state doesn't have, they have something called labor law action over coverage, and that's what drives up the premium for all these contractors in New York. And essentially, all that law says, it's kind of screwed up, is that okay, so I have a construction company, I sub out scaffolding to Dom, and we're doing work for 40 Wall, okay? I think if I recall from being in the city, that's owned by Trump, 40 Wall's Trump Plaza, Trump building. So if he is working for me and he gets injured on the job, he can actually sue me, sue you, and sue the building owner.
Right.
So it's kind of screwed up, but and so then all these lawyers and insurance companies try to start putting all this language in these contracts that say hold harmless and waivers of sub, so that you can't be held on. But at the end of the day, because of this labor law action over coverage, it allows the individual who potentially is injured to sue everybody.
So hold harmless is essentially useless.
I listen, I'll be honest with you, based on what I've been seeing lately, it's almost impossible to yourself up on these contracts. The attorneys, they find loopholes. Yeah. And so that's what's driving. So you asked before, how often has it changed? There was a company, I won't mention the company's name, a big insurance company. They just came into the market 7 months ago. They're already out of the market.
Really?
Yeah, they're out of the market. So they didn't even last a full year. They came out of the business.
Yeah. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. I mean, everyone that owns a home or some type of asset that has insurance is feeling the pain with these, these increased premiums. Like I said earlier, from 30 to 50% higher just overnight. What do you think is the major driving force for that? Besides, these accident fall victims on construction sites, real estate, homeowners policies, car premiums.
Well, there's so many pieces that add to that equation of these raises, right? But let's start with the most common issue today. So, and this is what actually kind of, being in the business every day, this is what surprises me the most. People are saying, why did my rate go up? Whether it's home, auto, commercial, why did my rate go up? And so the question I have for everyone, and you guys are, essentially in somewhat the same line of business, insurance, real estate. So the question I have for everybody is, why is your auto price gone up? You lease a car, it's up, 30%, right? Why is home values up? Why are interest rates up? Why are building materials up? And so when you ask yourself these questions, frankly speaking, to the average Joe out there who maybe is not engaged with business like we are every day, well, can you kind of put the pieces together just based off that? Just off that one piece, does that not kind of tell you some kind of story? Right? If your building supplies are up 30%, do you think your insurance stays the same? So now let's peel it back a little bit. If a year ago it cost $500,000 to rebuild a one-family residential home in Staten Island that was, call it 2,000 square feet, and if that same home is now 30% higher to rebuild and the value has gone up, what do you think happens to the insurance? Well, it's no longer $500 to replace it. Mm-hmm. It's now $685, maybe $7. So what do the insurance companies do? Oh, we'll just give you $200,000 extra in coverage, but no cost. I mean, it's kind of like common sense. Yeah. And then to take it a step further, the tightening of the market. Well, if there was 20 people in the game that were willing to offer you quotes, and now there's 8, what happens to the price? Yeah. Right. Simple economics here, yes. So those are 2 major factors. And then you want to take it another step further. Let's talk about the catastrophic events that are going on around the country. These big storms. Insurance companies are folding like it's normal now.
Yeah. Well, right? two things that are prevalent, at least in New York City, is people coming in from New Jersey overnight, robbing cars, taking them for joyrides, smashing them up, right? I mean, every single day I hear a story of someone. I mean, it happened to you, Rob. Yeah. So, I mean, there are probably crazy amount of claims just for, people stealing cars and wrecking them, right? And then the second thing is, I mean, the looting that's happening in New York City. I mean, like I said before, I'm on the Upper West Side, Lululemon. I mean, I'm friends with a detective in the local precinct. They're like, every single day Lululemon's getting ransacked. My whole job is keeping Lululemon from claiming bankruptcy because they're just smashing up the storefront, going in and grabbing. I mean, you see it on TV every night. Someone's paying for these claims for these storefronts being wrecked. So, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, that's got to be creating huge increases.
Yeah, I mean, much bigger problem there than even just insurance, right? I mean, that's
that's right.
Yeah. A dear friend of mine who I won't say his name on air, but a dear friend of mine who in the construction field, his car just got stolen right out of his driveway at 6:15 a.m. Yeah. He called me the other day. He said, "Shoot, my car got stolen. What do I do?" This is becoming the norm.
Yeah.
It's
happened to me. Happened to me right around Christmas time.
Yeah, tell the story.
I had to call 3 days.
You had to call 3 days?
3 days. And I literally, I go, normal routine, I go to Starbucks in the morning. My brother calls me and he's like, "Do you mind running the Rite Aid for me?" I'm like, "I'm really in a rush. I have an 8:30 meeting. It's like 8:09. So I'm like, all right. I pull in at 8:15. Right. I walk into the store. I'm on the phone. I'm like, I got my AirPods in. I'm just whatever. I get what I got to get. I walk out and I'm like, where did you park? What is wrong with you? It didn't even occur to me. I'm like, where did I park? I'm literally looking everywhere. And then this guy comes out. He's like, did they get your car? He's like, I just saw those two guys. I'm like, oh, no.
Wait, you left your keys in the car?
Yeah. Well, yes. But like I said, I just got the car. I had my backpack in the car with the spare key.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
Like, I just got it.
Right. I got you.
I mean, it wouldn't have happened if it was another
When
week.
did this happen?
In December. And, like...
Staten Island.
Yeah. And anyway, I'm like, obviously I realized I had everything in the car. You name it. Checks, my computer, I mean, everything. So I called the cops. Cops luckily showed up in like 2 minutes. And it was actually good because they're like, we got the guy, jump in. I'm like,
really?
Losers. They didn't even make it a block. So I pull up and they got another blue BMW pulled over. I'm like,
oh,
that's
it wasn't
not me.
you. Oh.
No.
Oh, man.
And then I download like the app and sure enough, they were already in Jersey. So
yeah, that's the thing. The good thing with them, you could locate where they are.
it didn't matter. They ripped it out 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
I found the car. I found the car myself.
Right.
Like, a couple hours later. Didn't get it back for like 4 days. It was a $50,000 claim all said and
Yeah,
done.
did they wreck the car?
Wrecked it.
Yeah.
New engine.
This
They
is
put like 20-something hundred miles on the car in like 4 days.
this is a very sensitive topic to me, where I be honest, I won't even elaborate on this show, but it bothers me a lot. This is a messed up conversation. It really is.
No,
it's an invasion of your privacy.
Understatement of the lifetime.
Yeah.
I felt so
Violated.
I mean, I had security staying at my house because I didn't know, like I had mail. You don't know.
Yeah.
Then when I got the call back, I realized I got a little less nervous when they saw like stacks of like car registrations, credit cards. I mean, you're just a number. And it's. But anyway, we're getting way off topic.
Yeah.
I have a wild insurance story. Just since we're talking about stories, 25 years old, I buy my first mixed-use building to put my office in. I was renting at the time. 25, we make improvements to the building. We're finished. Me and my partner look at each other and we're like, man, it was a 3-story building, Victory Boulevard. We really should have changed those 3 windows on the 3rd floor. We never did it. So I call up a home improvement guy. There's no permits involved. Hey, I want you to change 3 windows. I'm not buying the windows. I'm not providing the labor. I'm not providing the material. Just, hey, fix 3 windows is all I want to know. Call me a week when it's done. A few days later, I get a phone call from a friend of mine on the block. He goes, we have a problem. I go, what happened? He goes, well, your contractor that you hired to install these 3 windows had 2 guys on one ladder. One of the guys falls off the ladder, hits the other guy. He falls 3 stories, breaks his femur on a fence. Okay, so now I'm the owner of the building. I was the contractor when I was doing the job at required permits. Those permits were closed out, and with the architectural firm, right? So now I have 3 connections to the property.
Oh wow!
Mind you, I'm like 3 months from getting married. Okay, so I'm panicking. So I call up the architecture insurance. This is nothing to do with you. There's no plans. There's no permits. You're off the hook. Great. Call up my GC license. Listen, you were not the GC in the job. Your GC permits were closed out. It was just a home improvement job. You hired a man in a van. Okay. Call my homeowner's policy. They say, no. The guy that you hired is wrong. He has the proper insurances. He's on the hook. I forget about it. 3 years later, I get a phone call from the insurance company. Hey, I want to talk to you about losing the case. I said, what case? They were sending the mail to the old address, which I had just moved from. Labor law. You were talking about it earlier. Mm-hmm. The judge deemed this a labor lawsuit, okay? I had $1 million policy for homeowners insurance. In New York State, I might say this wrong, in New York State, the homeowner is responsible for labor law. It was a runaway jury. They gave this guy $1 million. Okay?
Oh,
the guy that fell, that broke his femur.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
now, I'm sorry. They gave him $1.4 million. I says, are you kidding me? Because I knew I was covered for $1 million. They said, Mr. Ciccarelli, we're the ones who chose to go to trial.
Yeah.
He did want to settle for less. Because we chose to go to trial, we're on the hook for the additional $400,000.
Oh wow.
But we're gonna fight it and appeal the case. They appealed the case. It got reduced from $1.4 million to $1 million, which is what I was covered for. Boom, $1 million claim on my policy. Now, this happened to be an illegal immigrant, which I wasn't aware about, who was only in the country 2 or 3 months, grabbed his $1 million in cash, went back to Ecuador, where it's probably worth $4 or $5 million, and for a broken femur in America, the guy's living like a king now. Unbelievable
I gotta
story.
go to one of your properties and break a bone.
Yeah, do me a favor before we wrap up here. Give me a few addresses.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Yeah.
I might just find a few people and tell them we'll whack it up
Absolutely.
50-50.
Unbelievable story.
I also know a good injury attorney, so
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
There you go.
press everything hard.
So I have a good question for you. So there's a lot of insurance. There's people that do insurance, right? Plenty of people.
Sure.
What's the difference? Why should people work with you? What can you come to expect by working with you? And you know, as an extension of that, what is your perfect client? Best referral somebody can give you?
For sure. Good question. And honestly, the answer is not to be cliche, but the answer would go the same as if I asked you the question, right? You're in real estate, right? A lot of realtors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why would they work with you versus, you know, one another? And frankly, I think everything is relationship, right? I think everything's relationship because you know,
The client experience.
yeah, I mean, listen, there's 30 other insurance people that, you know, 40, 50, 60 in Staten Island that they could choose from. And, you know, I think referral is tremendous in our business. Why would they choose the insurance goat? Well, I'll tell you this. One of my biggest belief systems, especially over the last 6 to 12 months, has been the client's engagement level with who they're doing business with. They need to feel a connection. They need to feel relatable, right? And I think I might have just shared something recently that stated this, and I don't know if it was this exact words, but there needs to be some type of relatable transaction, relatable feeling. You know, people don't want to feel intimidated. They want to feel like you're on the same page with them, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I talk to clients, I talk to every client, big, small, the same exact way. And I tell them straight up, and I might even use these words verbatim. I say, I'm not a salesperson, although some people will call me a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a relationship person. And if you feel I added value, we're going to work together. And if not, then, you know, I think the formula is more simple than we know, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're a good person, you run with integrity, you run with knowledge, you're honest with people, I think you do good business. No matter what line you're in.
The client experience is huge, especially these days. I mean, years ago, I remember like your family doctor, you'd go there, you sit there for 3 or 4 hours. You had an appointment at 2:00, he's not seeing you till 4, and you just accepted it. I mean, these days where everything is just so fast paced and technology, right? That shouldn't exist anymore. When I first had my son, I would go to this doctor who everyone loved, and I'd sit there for 3 or 4 hours. I'm like, why am I doing this? Is his time more valuable than mine?
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. We ended up changing doctors, but I also have this big belief that in any relationship there can't be a winner and a loser, right? You need to get something out of the transaction, and I need to get something out of the transaction. And if someone walks away a winner and someone walks away a loser, it was not a good transaction.
Good deal. Both parties walk away a little unhappy.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you this. This is something that probably sits the closest to my heart since I've been in the game, even at working in finance. I've never followed numbers. I followed behaviors. And there are a lot of guys out there who are very successful, and a lot of guys out there who are even more successful than me if you measure it on a monetary perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But my mindset has always been, if I follow the behaviors, the numbers come. So I don't follow the numbers, I follow the behaviors. And essentially, what does that really peel back to? Just do the right thing, be a good person, run at the right speed.
Yeah.
I don't chase the sale, right? I don't chase the sale.
It's also the behavior of your customer, of the client.
Yeah.
You know, Rob and I had this conversation about rating our customers, rating the people in our life, right? You know, it could be a monster client, but if he's a complete,
so important.
if he's just a complete disaster to deal with, you know, it's not worth it.
We talked about A, B's, and C's.
So important what you just shared, and I'll touch on this just because this has been something that I've been. So as the industry changed over the last 6 to 12 months, right? It's not a secret. There's low inventory. There's not as much houses as there was for sale 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You might not be designing as many products. A lot of people out there are ashamed to say that their business is down 50%. Well, you're an asshole because everyone's business is down 50%, right?
That's right.
Okay, so with that being said, you know, I think as we slow down a little bit, we have a chance now to really evaluate things.
Yeah.
And so over the last 3 or 4 months, I started saying to myself, even though I'm slower now than I was a year ago, I'm also going to be more selective on who I work with now. And the people who drive me crazy and take time away from me and my family over nothing, over pennies, I no longer work with those people. And
I agree with you.
You know,
I took that time during COVID. You know, the whole world shut down, and I completely reevaluated how I run the business, how it's structured, you know, how to be more efficient. And it was a game changer. I came out of COVID a completely different business.
I've become so systematic. You know, I'm probably about 80% commercial. Residential, it's kind of unavoidable, and I mean, you could do it better, but people want to see stuff. Whether it's a buyer, seller, it's. I mean, I'm literally handling a couple residential properties right now, some of which are like family, and it's a lot of time. I'm spending more time on those individually than a lot of my other stuff. And it's not really a moneymaker, right? I'm doing it because of the relationship. But commercial-wise, I've gotten it down. Like, for example, I handle a lot of dispositions and subleases for Walgreens, right? I handle a lot of their stores. We have a tight system. If you inquire about something, you know, I need your email. I'm going to send you all the information. The information lays out very clearly of, hey, this is what it is. It's a sublease. You know, here's, you know, what do you think? If you're interested and they want to see it, they want to have a showing. Okay, I send you a questionnaire where you have to basically send back information of like, hey, do you have other businesses? You know, basically give me a little bit like portrait of like your financial picture essentially. And now I've vetted it. So like if I'm meeting somebody for any kind of showing, there's a damn good chance I'm doing that deal.
Sure.
Because you're right. It takes away time from your family.
Yeah. I think the moral of what we're probably all talking about is I'm respecting my time more now than ever. Yeah. You know? And I think, you know, when you get to this level of maturity and understanding your craft and how well you can potentially do with it, you start respecting your time more to say, I can't allow people to take my time from me. It is valuable. Yeah. Because I'd rather hang out with my wife and kids then. Yeah.
100%. You know? I mean, money, nothing bothers me more in life than wasted time. Yeah. Literally nothing more. You know, you can make more money, but time you just can't get back.
Now, the social media game. I mean, we've connected because of your social media presence. Talk to us about what made you jump in, what made you be so charismatic as you are. What are the downsides of doing this with the exposure? And I'm sure there's obviously some upsides with your business, which is why you're doing it. You know, tell us about the Insurance Go persona.
So real quick before I forget, there's no downside with the exposure. Zero.
No
right?
hecklers on social media.
I mean, listen, here's what I say. Ready? And this is how I talk every day, off air, on air. Your biggest critics are the ones who
are your biggest fans.
They're your biggest fans. They're the ones who watch the video 10, 15, 20 times. I promise that, right? And then the people who like your stuff, you know, they watch it. But your critics, they let it replay 30 times. And I think when you get into the game of whatever it is you do, you can't get into the game with the idea of I'm worried about what others are going to think. Because if you're worried about what others think, then you're already lost. Yep. A dear friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, one of my closest friends, he shared something. He's beyond successful. Shared something really powerful with me a few years ago. And he said, Jude, the minute you put your head down and don't look around at what's going on around you, watch how you take off. And every day he tells me, again, he's successful on a very different level than we understand. And he tells me every day, he says, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Just put your head down and just get focused.
Yeah. So like so to answer, so this is a long-winded answer, but when I go out there, I do it for me. Right? I really do. And I do understand that there are going to be people who like what I do. And then there are going to be people who are judgmental what I do. And frankly speaking, the people who are judgmental are the old school people who don't really understand it. And then you got the age bracket of what's coming up right now from, let's call it, 18 to let's go all the way up to 40. They love it. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Right? And so when you say charismatic and personality, that's been me my whole life. Now I'm just displaying it on social media. I've always been very interested with businesses. That's what I did at JP Morgan Chase. I was a commercial banker. I worked with doctors. I worked with dentists, attorneys. I worked with restaurant owners, construction clients. So I always loved working with businesses. And so this gives me now an outlet to dive in a little deeper with business owners as I have in my past.
Yeah.
And there's more of an underlining story as to why I'm out there doing what I'm doing. The underlining story is I believe people who run at the speed we run at, we all started somewhere. And people look at our success today. They might see you, me, or you in a nice car with a nice house on a nice vacation. And I spoke about this right here in this chair where he's sitting on my last episode with Krista. And they only see the victory. And they don't see what we've done to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I meet with business owners and I share their success. I ask them, what did it take to get to where you are? There's got to be a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And I peel that layer back because I want people to tell their story. I want people to tell their story because you might know one of the most successful restaurant owners in New York and people just look at that guy and say, oh, must be nice. Yeah, but like maybe he had trouble making his mortgage payment 7 years ago, but he bet on himself.
Yep.
Right.
One of the greatest quotes I've heard is people are awarded in public for what they've done in private for years.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
You did a recent social media bit with Peter Macri, Panini Grill, good friend of Rob's and I's. We actually designed his
he
new
told
restaurant there.
I think he's the one who introed us through. Yeah. Peter's the man.
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Doing a big push on social media as well.
But look, here's a perfect example. That guy works 150 hours a week.
Yep.
But you know what they see? Oh, he's got the Panini Grill. He says tutto posto. He's the best. But the guy works 150 hours a week. He didn't get there by accident.
Yeah.
Kids
right?
Kids an earner. There's no question.
Right. So his story's it's a nice story. It's a nice story to share. Right. And then listen, let's be honest. Like, who doesn't love food?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you're getting in front of a few restaurants that are, you know, really popular chains where people want to go. Who doesn't love food? Who doesn't want to see this place? So yeah, man, for me, it's social media is it's a must today, right? So it's a must. For me, it's fun. It is a lot of work. If you ask me what's the downfall, well, the downfall is it costs me money to go out there and interview someone like Peter. It costs me money. I have to pay someone to come there with me, video, chop it up.
Yeah. Then
Then it costs me money because my time is allocated. So for anyone who's like, well, what are you doing? Well, it costs me money to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about it. And I'm out there encouraging people to share their story. What brought you to where you are today?
Are you seeing, and I know this isn't while you're doing it, but have you seen, because of the exposure on social media,
No question.
people calling you and
No
you seen an
question.
increase in business?
Think about it. It's very simple. Top of mind.
Yeah.
They call right. It's top of mind.
Yeah.
Right. I
Listen,
need
it's
auto.
how you got here today. We saw
Yeah.
you and we met, and you know, obviously good dude, hard worker, and we were like, this would be a perfect fit for this insurance segment. And Peter, there's no question he saw a huge increase in his sales.
Sure.
And I like to speak to other guys in the game on the direct.
I think it depends. You know, I've struggled with it for years because honestly, I've invested a lot in social media over time and really haven't seen results in. So, for example, you hit it right on the head, right? 18 to 40. That's your Instagram, right? That's your Instagram, and that's a big following right there. Not my business. That's not my client.
But you're young. But think about this. You're
Correct.
young. All
Correct.
those people who
Correct.
are 18 to 40.
It's investment now. For
Right.
later.
What
Yeah,
about in
100%.
5 years?
100%.
What about when that 28 is now 33?
Correct. So
Yeah.
now I'm doing it with the long-term goal in hand because honestly, the only thing I've been able to convert is LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe if I'm promoting residential stuff or an investment building, maybe on Facebook.
Yeah.
But Instagram, other than that, has really just been
Mhm.
being out there. You
Yeah.
know?
Ready? There's no secret formula. Just, consistency,
Yes.
right? And it may not pay off in a month. It may not pay off in 3 months. It may not pay off in 6 months. What if I told you right now, and I don't know, this could happen. What if I told you my slogan on what I end every episode is what keeps you going, right? So what if I told you that if you kept going in 2 years or 3 years, you would now develop a market of people who have been seeing you for 2 or 3 years, and now we're in the space, and like I'm calling that guy, right? And you can't monetize that today. You can't.
Planting the seeds for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back, I want to touch. I know we have to wrap up soon. Going back to our conversation about the rating system with clients and really controlling your time, winners and losers in relationships. Rob brought this up to me a couple of years back. You have to treat and it sounds terrible, but it makes so much sense. Treat every relationship with some deposits and withdrawals, right? And we have these people in our lives. It could be family members, it could be a best friend, it could be a client. And I value the people in my circle, and I've over the last few years, I've been very picky on who I allow close to me. And you really have to judge someone by the deposits and withdrawals. And at some point, someone's just taking so much from you, and it's just withdrawal after withdrawal.
Cut. Goodbye.
And it has nothing to do with money, right? We're talking about just value. It's time to go.
I view every relationship, including like my wife, as a bank account. It's just, think about it. If you make enough deposits, you can afford a couple withdrawals.
Yeah.
And there definitely is a point where you're fucking overdrawn, and that's with everybody, right? If somebody really screws you on a deal, that trust is gone.
Yeah.
You never get it
I like
back.
to use the word, similar to what you guys saying, I like to use the word alignment. And there are people that maybe I was aligned with 5 or 6 years ago, and as of today, they don't align with me anymore. So it's not personal. It's not I'm mad at you and I don't want to hang out with you no more. It's we're not aligned anymore.
Yeah.
Simple.
Right. People say you changed. What'd you think I did it for?
That's right.
Yeah.
With that said, Jude, thank you so much for coming. I think this was a tremendous episode. I definitely learned something about insurance. It's a key part in anything you do, whether it's real estate or business. And just keep rocking out and doing what you're doing, man.
Love it, man.
Yeah, man. As Pete from Panini says, he says, Jude, I'm just getting started. I just warming up. And to be honest with you, these guys out there, they better get used to seeing the go. I just begun.
Right.
I'm not even at 5% yet.
Love it.